What is up, my friend Milton? Welcome to Cryptowise. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. What's going on, Milt?
Marv, buddy, good to be back. Good to hear your voice. Can't wait to talk crypto today.
I missed you, and I'm back. I said I was coming back, and I'm back. I'm excited for today's show because we are talking Solana, and we're going to dive deep into Solana and some interesting projects to watch out for this upcoming next bull run. Which, hey, we talked about it last show. The countdown to the halving is coming close. And so we got to pay attention. We got to focus. And right now, today, we are talking about Solana.
Yeah, I mean, what a week Solana had, Marv. It's crazy. Up over 25% this week. Going from under $20 to over $24. So we thought today would be a great time to have a look at the Solana ecosystem. What the heck is going on in there? We've been talking a lot recently about Photo Finish Live, which is an amazing horse racing game on Solana. But we thought today we would dive deep, see what's going on in DeFi, gaming, NFTs, because obviously you and I think we agree on this, that Solana is going to be a huge part of the next bull run.
Yeah, no question. You and I have been talking a lot about it and what position we want to start to get ourselves into. I mean, we both have, full disclosure, we both have a decent position in Solana. We have had for a long time. Way down from where we entered into it, obviously. But, I think the consensus is the same, that you and I both agree that Solana has a bright future ahead and that it is definitely something to consider having in a portfolio for this next bull run. And we're seeing some activity right now, which is obviously gaining some interest again.
I think it's a good time to talk about Solana too, because this time last year was, I think we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the FTX collapse. We got the Sam Bankman-Fried trial starting this week. So a lot of people a year ago after that FTX collapse thought Solana was dead. I mean, let's have a look at the charts there.
It's always interesting to look at the chart. It's always like when you zoom that out, because we think, we look at the last week and we think Solana is pumping, things are happening. But look at the chart as you zoom that out. And actually, it looks like Solana's doing very, very little comparatively, but it really is. I mean, look at that green candle coming up now. But yeah, wow, look at that. Hey, isn't that something?
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing about the charts is you always have to zoom out to really get a perspective on it. Because if if you're like you and I, and we look at crypto by the second, basically, and you think a couple of days ago and you think Solana's at 19 and now it's over 24, you're like, oh no, I missed the pump. But really, in the grand scheme of things, getting in at Solana at 24, if it's going to do what we think it can do, is, obviously going to still look very, very cheap. So if we look at these, basically it was last December when it hit its low. It was just over $9.
Wow.
And a lot of people thought that it was going to die because of FTX, but I think it is clearly shown that it's not going to die. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it has a really, really good chance at still being one of the top plays for the next bull run.
I got to give it to you because you and I had discussions back then around $9, around $12, and I was one of the guys that was really thinking that maybe Solana's dead, when all the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX stuff happened, and then we kind of just watched it die and die and die. I was one of the guys on the other side thinking, I know, there's a lot of talk about a lot of SOL being held by Sam Bankman-Fried and the guys involved in FTX, and that it was going to, dump off and just crush it to zero, and what's going to happen to the Solana community as a whole and all those types of things. But now, as you stretch it out and we look at the amount of time since then, and it not only has it survived, it's starting to seriously recover. And so, I'm flipping sides here, and I'm with you again here, Milt, where I think based on that, I think Solana and the things that are being built on it, because the other concern was with all of that downward pressure and all of the bad news, where the devs and the project's going to flip into other ecosystems, but it didn't really happen. a lot of people continue to build on Solana, and some amazing projects, like obviously Photo Finish that you and I talk about, but a lot of other projects, some of which we're going to talk about today, which honestly, are some projects that you guys should really pay attention to.
Yeah, basically, I mean, that's such a good point. I mean, at that time, why people were so scared was, one, because obviously FTX had such a huge amount of Solana on their books, and they still do. I mean, in the bankruptcy, we know that they own a good chunk of Solana that they will be selling. Now, a lot of it is vested, so they're getting it monthly. So there will be selling pressure against that. But I think that Solana has built such a big ecosystem that it can withstand that. But as you said, I mean, one of the biggest problems about that was a lot of the Solana projects, because it was so tied to FTX, had their treasuries on FTX, so we just weren't sure what projects would survive or not. And we know in a lot of the NFT collections had their treasuries on FTX. So it was really a scary time for the whole ecosystem. But I do think that enough time has passed. We've seen the team has just kind of been relentless in focusing on building. We haven't had because one of the big complaints about Solana was that it would shut down every once in a while.
That's
and
right.
People would make fun of it. It's centralized, but they basically said, we know that's going to happen. We're just going to keep making it better until that stops happening. Now, there has not been a technical issue with Solana in a really long time now. And in terms of transactions per day, they're the top chain. They still have more transactions per day than Ethereum does, which is incredible to think of.
Yeah, no, it's hugely incredible. I mean, we talked about this a lot last season, so to speak. They did the best job and had the most traction going mainstream out of any other project. We went to a store in New York City and bought Solana shoes with Solana, right? Like, they really got out there to the mainstream and made Solana a viable currency to buy with, to use with in the NFT world, in the gaming world, and so forth and so on. One of my concerns also was, a lot of like NFTs obviously were a huge thing and still are on Solana, right? But a lot of the big NFT marketplaces like Magic Eden, at the same time that all that was happening, they started integrating other options like Ethereum and Bitcoin and others that you can now trade and use their marketplace. And I thought that might have a bigger impact than it did, but Solana still remains the powerhouse in the NFT gaming space.
Well, and yeah, I mean, if you want to look at my screen here, we got, NFT sales by chain the last 24 hours. Solana is only behind Ethereum and Mythos chain. Mythos is a gaming chain. So really, in terms of NFT sales, you've got Solana still kicking butt next to Polygon and BNB, Immutable X, Arbitrum, a lot of these other chains that thought they would have overtaken Solana by now in terms of NFT sales. That hasn't happened. Now, they're way behind Ethereum still, but
is that based on USD value volume?
Yeah.
So it's not based on volume of transactions.
No, this is USD volume, almost $1 million yesterday in the last 24 hours of NFT sales on Solana. And if you think of how dead the market is for Solana right now, or for NFTs, I mean, it was up 16% yesterday. And I want to talk in more depth about NFTs later in the video, Marv, but I just want to have a look. I want to let's start going through what is actually happening, certain tokens on Solana. I want to get your point of view on what you're looking at. And I'm going to kind of go through the ones that I think are interesting. Some are newer ones that are gaining traction. Some are older ones that I want to look at and see, are these still viable? Do they still have life in them? One thing to mention about Solana, since we're doing a whole episode about it, is their major conference, Solana Breakpoint, is happening at the end of this month. This year it's happening in Amsterdam. So, used to be in a bull run when chains had their big conferences, you would see kind of a pump go on. Now, I don't know that we'll see a pump. But what I find really interesting, and this is what I love to do, is for these big conferences, see who the speakers are you know, especially for something like Solana Breakpoint, who is speaking there, what projects are represented. And you can kind of, if you go through the list here, you can see that, you know, certain projects have 3 or 4 people speaking. And then you have a few others where you're like, oh, why isn't that project there? How come they're not speaking this year? Which kind of maybe makes you a little bit worried about what's going on. But huge event here in Amsterdam coming on at the end of the month. So it's another good reason to talk about Solana these days right now. So let's, I also saw this tweet today, which was on point. OX Gumshoe, he tweeted about Solana. He said, the next bull run may be the biggest ever for Solana, so you must position yourself in the best way possible. Some of the projects that he's looking at, now some of these don't have a token yet. So he's got a list of DeFi, he's got a list of DEXs and meme coins, DePIN, gaming, NFTs. He's done a good little job here of breaking it down. So some of the ones on here we'll talk about, some of them we won't. So just also, if you want to check out 0x Gumshoe, he's got some good mentions here. Speaking of Twitter, Marv, let's make sure that everyone is following us at Cryptowise, guys.
I love the new picture, by the way.
Yeah, I kind of updated our thing here. It's
did you put that jacket? Like, was that jacket given to you, or was that in your closet when you took this?
No, I already had that jacket. You know, I can't be buying new clothes in the bear market. So, brand new profile pic at Cryptowise, guys. Make sure you're following us over on X. All right. So the jump in on Solana, I think the blue chip still on Solana is Render. Now the Render token, it's it's a well-known token from the last bull cycle, and now they are actually an Ethereum token, but they did announce a long time ago that they are going to integrate onto Solana and become more of a Solana project. Now the token, the Render token itself, I believe is still on ETH. But to me, this is Render is one of the Solana tokens that I'm looking at, and I think it probably will end up being on my portfolio for the next bull run. I just want to have a quick look at Render and at the chart here. So it's down at $1.70, which is a fairly good range to buy in. If you could, if it's got a lot of support kind of in the 70-cent range. So if there is another big dip and it goes down to 70 cents, that's where I'll be buying. But we had the all-time high at $7. So it's still, way off its all-time high. I think at 170, it's a pretty good buy. But Render, to me, is still the kind of number one, quote-unquote, Solana token to have in your portfolio for this next bull run. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Render is something that everyone should consider. I do find it interesting that deep into a bear, like this far into a bear, right? And we're looking at like, I'm looking at the Render chart right now, and I'm looking at a market cap of $644 million, which I just still find, I still find that insanely incredible, to be honest with you. To be this far into a bear with everything that's taken place, and we have projects like Render, it's still, close to $750 million valuation. And
yeah, it is pretty amazing. I think that says a lot about Render, the token.
That's what I mean.
It has established itself as a blue chip crypto.
Absolutely.
For sure. So, even though you can see that it's down in relative terms to some of the other crypto, it actually has done really well in this bear market. Considering,
a question that is always going to come up is, when we're talking about these sort of smaller alts comparatively to Solana themselves, what's the strategy though? Like, Solana is trading at whatever, $24-25. Its last all-time high was what? Let me check the chart here just to be consistent. Do you remember what Sol's?
I mean, it was in the $250 range.
Right. That's what I remember.
Right?
Yeah. So around
240-ish.
240, 253, I think. 253, 255. And so back in that range. So if you look at Sol now, I mean, for it to get back to its all-time high is a 10x.
Well, it's a 10x.
It's a 10x, right? So, and if you look at Render, where it's trading right now, right? I'm just doing basics here. At what is it, 173, for it to get back to its all-time high, which is $8, you know, I'm probably going to weigh more on this, just having Sol over Render. Not to say that Render is not a project that I wouldn't want to have. I don't have it. I'm very interested in it. I was interested in it a long time ago, and I think it's one that we need to watch. But the question always comes at this point in this type of time is, how much do you go into the altcoins of Solana versus actual Sol in terms of what I think is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think for me, I'm going to have more, from a percentage wise, I'm going to have more Solana in my portfolio than any of the altcoins. But I will say this, the Solana all-time high, I actually would not be surprised if it doesn't reach its all-time high in the next bull run, because we saw Solana, it's an interesting case because it went so high so fast, and a lot of that really was the SBF kind of him really pushing Solana, FTX being the hot exchange of the time. Everyone knew they were heavy into Solana. Everyone believed in them. And so I do think Solana maybe exceeded, you know, it wasn't just a normal crypto bull run pump. I think it exceeded what the other kind of tokens pumped at. So to me, if it can reach, say, 200 again, between 180, 200, and not quite get to that all-time high, I'll still be, obviously I'll still be very happy with that. But it is the one kind of layer one that went so hot in the last bull run that I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't quite make it to its all-time high.
Interesting.
I think that is, yeah, I just think it reached such heights last time. I don't expect it in the next bull run to go, say, because it hit 250. I'm not saying I think it's going to go to 500 in the next bull run. I just don't think that's going to happen. But I do think it's going to do really well. Whereas Render, I don't think really reached its potential. Even though it hit a $7 at its peak, I could see it surpassing that in the next bull run. So
I'm with you on that.
But
I'm with
from
you on
a
that.
risk, from a risk perspective, I would say Solana is one of my favorite plays from risk reward, because I think the risk downside on Solana right now is probably as low as any other crypto out there.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I guess the other question that we need to ask ourselves is, how do we feel about the next bull versus the last bull, right? Is it going to be similar to what we saw last time? Is it going to be even stronger than the one we saw last time? Is it going to be a weaker version? And that's going to play a role in where some of these top out.
For sure. I mean, my overall thesis is, on the cycles, which is, pretty common. I think most people basically just look at the past cycles and say to themselves, well, okay, every cycle seems to be the X, if you're going for Bitcoin, the X of Bitcoin is not as much as the last one. So if we're going from bottom to top, I think this cycle will not quite reach the percentages of the last one, but you never know. And certain alts definitely will. Obviously, if you can pick the right ones, then certain ones will. But I think for the established coins, I would say from a percentage increase, it will be less than the last cycle, in my opinion. Now, that's still a lot, though, because, well, if you look at Solana, I mean, in the last cycle, it went to 0 to 250. So it's not going to go that amount of X's. All right. So anyway, that's Render. To me, Render is the number one Solana kind of blue chipper. Now let's look at some DeFi protocols that Solana has never really been known for DeFi. Even in the last bull run, DeFi was never really its thing. I still don't think it will be kind of the major catalyst. I think gaming, NFTs still will be for Solana and other app use cases that need that kind of really fast transactions as opposed to the hardcore security that Ethereum offers. So, but in the DeFi, there's a couple of interesting things that I've noticed here. So I'm just on DeFi Llama here. If you look at the total value locked in Solana, it's at 337 million, which is up from kind of where its lows were from the crash, but it's still it still has not recovered. If you look at the kind of the all-time chart here, it had over close to 10 billion locked up into the last cycle.
Those were good times. Those were good times.
Those were good times. But a couple of projects these are newer projects that kind of have poked their little heads out. If you look at the charts here in terms of the monthly change of total value locked in here, we've got Jito, which is a liquid staking platform for Solana, which is a really interesting project where it basically allows you to stake your soul through Jito, and then it generates some extra rewards for you. So not only do you get the regular kind of soul rewards for staking, but you get a bit more on top of that through this Jito protocol. And it's doing really well. I mean, it's got a 2.4 million TVL now locked up. Over almost 14,000 people are using it now. And a lot of that has come in the last month or so. It's up 80% in terms of its TVL in the last month. So I think that's an interesting one to keep an eye out on. And the other one here that's up 50% is decentralized exchange Drift. Drift is a perpetual exchange here on Solana, on-chain perp. So you can do spot trading with leverage, 10 times the leverage here, and it's gaining traction. So I think Drift is also a project here to keep an eye out here on Solana. Those are kind of the two new boys in town, really gaining traction in DeFi on Solana. Then you've got some old plays, which Orca is, a DeFi platform, seems to be hanging around. You got a lot of speakers at the Breakpoint from Orca. So interesting play. If you look at the chart, obviously they're still kind of dead. I'm going to keep an eye on Orca. Could they come back, make a comeback? Who knows? The other one there is Mango Markets. Could they make a comeback? They seem, another dead token that either will come back or not. But these were two major DeFi platforms in Solana last time around that are still around, seem to still be kind of active, but the token's kind of been killed. Any of those names strike you as being more interesting than the other there, Marv?
Well, not more interesting than the other. I think, if you look at the history, there's still a lot of fear in some of these, right? In terms of, and look, we're watching what happened to FTX, the biggest of all. Anything with respect to leverage trading or staking for yield. I still have caution as to what I look for in the DeFi space, and where I'm going to tie my assets to. And so I think that's consistent across the market. And so I do think that I think I'll get to the point where I feel comfortable again with some of these, but I'm just still not there yet. So it'll be interesting to see how these play out.
Yeah, of course, FTX is a different case because it was a centralized exchange.
Well, I'm using FTX as an example only because it was the biggest, most trusted one in the space, right? And yeah, it was a centralized exchange. But you're right. It's not
really see any of the decentralized platforms. They actually held up really well. The only question is, will people use them?
Well,
we still have most of the decentralized exchanges are still kind of up there and running. They just kind of go up and down in popularity or not. So that's kind of the major question for me. Now, the staking, I think you're right, is that we've seen these staking platforms like Jito is basically, it's kind of a super powered version of Lido. And they haven't been around that long, and people, most people stake their Ethereum on Lido, and even the Solana staking, Lido has the majority of Solana staking happens on Lido, and we see that Lido still has 60 million of Solana staked, whereas Jito is catching up to it, but it's still just behind them. So you're right. They're kind of newer platforms. Can we trust them long term? What does it do to the ecosystem if a lot of the staking happens under one platform? Like, let's say Jito all of a sudden has, 90% of the Solana staked out there is through Jito. it does cause concern for sure, in the same way that people are concerned with the Lido having so much of the ETH staked, and the power and kind of centralized, does it turn it into a centralized entity, basically, if this one platform controls so much
of the stake
of the staking?
And then there's obviously the inherent risk of hacks and different types of attacks that happen, right? I mean, they're targets. And so you always have to be careful. I still, for a guy who is a full degen like myself, there's still quite a bit of fear stuck in here. And I'm just overly cautious compared to where I was last bull.
Oh, for sure. I definitely think this one of the lessons learned last time, and I'm pretty good at this already, but is, diversifying even more than I have been. So say I'm going to use Jito. Let's say I want to try it out. I definitely would not put all my Solana into one platform like that.
But I do think it's very interesting.
I mean, it's decentralized exchanges.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I think these are really interesting to keep an eye on, and even start to use and play with. I mean, the key is to be doing exactly this, which is diving deep and learning and understanding everything that's out there and preparing ourselves for the next run. And if we're right and Solana has a major gets major momentum in this next run, which we believe it will, then these are projects that we really need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and again, this is not financial advice, and especially with today's video, we both, we've disclosed we own a lot of Sol, but a lot of the projects we're talking about right now, we do not own. We're not saying to buy them right now. We're kind of just in research mode, trying to, get a sense of what's going on, the chains that we love out there, what projects are still alive from the last couple of years, what are new projects that are launching. And that's basically a first step towards just creating kind of a long list of projects to watch, and then eventually kind of jumping in on some of them, and other ones just, you're not going to end up owning everything.
No. Now, one of the spaces that I'm really excited to hear about, and I think that's where you're headed, is the gaming space, because that's a space that we've had a lot of success in, that we believe in, that we're in right now. And so always interested to find out what's happening in gaming, specifically on Solana, and what are some of the projects that we should be looking at?
Well, 100%, I think that gaming is going to be a huge part of Solana. I think gaming is huge. And this is the problem for me, Marv, because you and I have talked about this. I'm not a huge gamer, which sucks, because I think that gaming is going to be such a great place to make money in crypto in the next couple of years. I wish I was more of a gamer, but yeah, I'm hoping I'm going to be throwing out some games, and I'm hoping you're going to go
careful there when you're scrolling around, because Star Atlas is popping out, and that's giving me some PTSD.
Well, we should talk Star Atlas. That's one of the projects I want to talk about today, so we might as well just jump in.
For those of you who don't know and weren't a part of the Cryptowise family, in the last bull, I made some terrible decisions around Star Atlas, specifically around leverage trading on Star Atlas. And I think Milt, it was probably one of the most horrific bad moves that I'd ever made in crypto, where I was terribly liquidated on a short position on Star Atlas. I had longed it, and then I got emotional, and then I thought, oh my God, it's going down, and I had shorted it. And I lost a huge part of my portfolio in the gaming positions on that move, something I'll never do again, which is high leverage trading in these alts to that degree. But Star Atlas happened to be the one that I was focused on that time, and nothing against Star Atlas itself. But what's happening with Star Atlas today, because I need you to look at it, because every time I go to find out what's happening with Star Atlas, I start getting these physical reactions.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I've got projects out there myself that are hard to look at for sure. Well, I mean, the interesting thing about Star Atlas is they were the big, they were the big boy.
Massive.
In the last one, in terms of games being built on Solana. They were the most ambitious. They really
most talked about.
Most talked about for sure. And they've gone through hard times. There's an interesting article here on blockchaingamer.biz where they talk to one of the creators of Star Atlas. And, Michael Wagner, and he goes through and he admits that they've had a hard 12 months. They did a lot of layoffs. A lot of people were concerned, what's happening? Are they actually going to build this thing? It was such an ambitious project. They did, but the good news is they are still out there. They're still building. That's like one of the key things that I wanted to look at with some of these older games is like, what's going on with them?
I mean, they had raised so much money for this game. One thing I didn't, and I still don't know, is how much of that was tied into FTX, if at all. I would assume it was. But so I don't know what their treasury position is like, but it should, regardless of where things are at, should be still fairly healthy.
I know that a few of the things that they're working on, they're trying, like beyond the game, they want to be a developing platform so that other developers can create, things for start. Like they're creating a whole universe, which I love
is
the
just
concept. Bigger than one game for sure. One thing that I saw yesterday, which is interesting and not great, really in terms of a plus for them, is they're doing an NFT drop right now. And it has still not sold out, it looks like.
Oh, gosh.
Star Atlas Core Act 2, Episode 2. To be honest, I'm not even quite sure what this is, but clearly they're looking to raise some more money.
Are you sure it's a part of the Star Atlas, or are they just using the name?
No, this is, I am pretty positive this is a part of Star. It's an official Star Atlas launch. I could be wrong. Correct me if people out there know, but I'm pretty sure they tweeted about it yesterday.
Oh, shit.
So I don't know. I mean, I love the ambition of Star Atlas. It's been killed. I don't know if you can pull up the chart there.
Is that the Atlas token?
Well, there's two tokens. There's the DAO token and the game token. So there's the DAO token. Okay. Looking at the game token is the one that really, really got killed.
Unbelievable. I mean, look, they got a market cap, Milt, to 14 million.
Yeah, I remember where the market cap was, though. It was like $1 billion. And that was the question, people were like, what are these games worth? Like, let's say they could even do what they said they're going to do. Is that even worth 3 or 4 billion or whatever the market cap was? So that's an interesting question. But this is my question for you, Marv. Because these games take so long to build.
Yeah.
A couple of these projects, and it's not just Star Atlas, a couple other ones I just wanted to mention at the same time as Star Atlas, because they're kind of similar. Star Garden, which is the Project Illume game.
Yeah, we got a bunch of those. Full disclosure, when it came out,
the NFTs. Yeah,
we bought them on the mints.
Now they've been building. They're out there. They're building stuff, but again, very ambitious. Hasn't really caught on. The token.
The NFTs haven't been doing that well.
The NFTs haven't been doing great. And then the other one is, where do I have it?
I think there's something to be said about selling a story versus selling a product that's already built, right? Obviously, to a degree.
This is the third one I want to talk about, which is Aurory, which is, they were really they're still one of the top NFT projects on Solana, and they've been working on the game, and their token, if we look at their token here, is kind of looks like the charts all look the same, where they peaked at $23 and it's down at 43 cents, and it's kind of been dead. There's no trading volume for any of these at the moment, but they're still building, and it's been years, and so they're years ahead of the new games that are going to come out.
But then you look at a project that finally built, right, and came out, and you see this similarity. Looking at Crown Token, right, by Photo Finish, where you're no longer a story, you have a product, and built something really special. Things change; they can change overnight. I mean, look at that. So, I think part of the story here is you want to get in early. You want to get in before it comes out and it gets all the attention and people using it, obviously. And so that's what we're doing, is digging deep. But at the same time, until there's something out, tangible, where we can play it, we can understand it, we can earn from it, That's when you really see things take off for these at this point. It's no longer
all three
the
of
day
these
of
games
just
that
selling a story is a lot harder these days, is what I'm getting at.
Well, I think, all three of the games that we're talking about right now, there is, again, I'm not a gamer and I haven't tried any of them, but there are aspects that you can play right now. So I'll be
small
curious if any
aspects. I want to dig. I want to dig
are
into
playing. And, if you're playing these games, let us know, like, what are they like? But this is the thing, like, the thing is, it's like kind of the luck of when you launch. I don't know, like, if one of these games is a real product out there in the next bull run, people are really loving it, playing it and stuff, will that be a better chance than just the next game that just sells the story?
Right.
Now, an example of a new game that is on Solana that's building a lot of hype, which is more of an NFT.
We were just talking about
it also has a game aspect of it, is Genopets, which is kind of a cool concept of where you kind of almost like the old school Tamagotchi, where you have a pet, but it's connected to you. It has your personality. The more you walk and do things active in real life, the more energy your pet has. And then there'll be a game action where in the game, you'll be able to fight other creatures and stuff. This is kind of, the new kid on the block. And, I don't know. I think I got to lean in terms of gaming investments, because other than Photo Finish, I'm not really probably going to be playing a lot of these games. They'll just be investments for me. I think I'm leaning more towards, just investing in the newer stories.
Well, I yes and no. I think look, if some of the games that have been around and have been silent for a little while during the bear have actually been building and then come out with something amazing, then that's going to be hard to compete against versus selling a really cool story again. And so I think the hype will come to the new ones, yes. If they're sexy, they're exciting. But if they're really building in the background and they're building what they're promising and they come out with something awesome like Photo Finish did, then watch out, because they're going to be years ahead of some of these new games, and they're actually going to have real people playing and earning, and that becomes much different. I mean, we saw that in the last cycle as well.
I mean, I agree. The only thing is the tokenomics scare me of the old games. The fact that there's a lot of tokens out there, and have they been spending their money wisely? All that kind of stuff. I feel like the newer games will also have learned lessons from these old games. Like Star Atlas, to me, could be an amazing buy, but I really don't trust that all the money they raised back in the day has gone into the game. And also, the other thing is, from a chart perspective, you're going to have all this price action. You're going to have people who have been holding on for years to Star Atlas that just are going to, any little pump that's going to happen, they're going to sell into to just get their money back, or to be like, finally, I can get a little bit of something out of this.
Well, I really love what the Photo Finish guys did, because they did the opposite. Star Atlas came out with a coin before they had anything. Photo Finish just came out with a basic PFP, and then started to build, and then eventually released the Crown token and the Derby token, which is their stable, right? And so I think they went about it the right way. Whereas you're right, like Star Atlas and these guys created all this hype, launched the coin, had these inflated valuations, had nothing really behind it yet, and then got absolutely crushed. So the question remains, is it better to invest in something new versus try to take a leap on some of the older stuff, depending on what they've been doing in the background? And that all comes down to continuous research and paying attention to what's actually being done, right? What are these projects? What have they actually done? Are they in survival mode? Are they just hanging on by a thread, but not much is being built? Have they kept their treasury healthy, regardless of where it's at, kept it healthy and been investing all of that into building an amazing product? I mean, these are all really important questions to find the answers to before making any decisions.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I do think the Photo Finish is really kind of just created a blueprint that is amazing, that I'll be curious to see if other games, newer ones especially, go that route. I think because it's interesting, because with the PFP collection, the NFT collection of Photo Finish, back, when Solana NFTs were hyped, you could make good money off of those PFPs.
Yeah.
And most of my NFT NFTs from Solana, I have a ton of them still, are worthless right now.
Yeah.
And I am hoping that a lot of them will bounce back as NFTs kind of become popular in the next bull run again. Especially, I think there'll be like a retro vibe to a lot of the early Solana ones. But by keeping my photo finish, I've been earning a lot more through the game, having kept those, than I would have at that time. So yeah, I think that's a really good way to go, is launch the NFT collection, use that money to build the game, and then make sure you have good tokenomics and good utility for those NFTs within the game. So Marv, like, I don't know how far in we should go into NFTs on Solana, because obviously we're running along today, but did you have anything that you wanted to talk about NFT wise on Solana, just in general, or any particular projects that you're looking at? Where are you at with Solana NFTs right now?
Well, to be honest, like, you know, I've kept in the loop as to what's going on. I haven't been participating on many of the mints over the last long while, but I've been watching them. I invested quite a bit, like yourself there, Milt, to a number of different collections, you know, high hopes for some of them. I still have high hopes for OK Bears as an example. Some of them, it's just, it's what they're talking about or what they're building or their community. Sometimes it's just art related and sometimes it's gaming related. I mean, obviously the one I'm paying the most attention to and really most involved with right now is the Photo Finish, because I can actually play to earn on it. I can race my horses, build my stable. We're staking the original PFPs, the original Photo Finish PFPs to earn crown, like you talked about. I mean, this is, going back to this, an incredible story, because these PFPs have yielded us tens of thousands of dollars just in crown by holding on to them for the years that we did and being loyal investors in the project by believing in what they did, right? And so it's a great story. I agree, people should take that roadmap. But right now I'm sitting back and I'm watching more than I'm actually actively involved in buying and selling NFTs at the Space Melt. I'm sitting back, I'm watching. There hasn't been a project yet in a while that's really got my attention to the point where I wanted to really jump in and put a bunch of cash behind. So more, it's been looking at my existing collection. I've liquidated, like, unlike you, I'm not a hoarder till death. I have liquidated a bunch of my NFTs that have literally hit the floor to zero. And I look at them and they're not doing anything. Now, there's some that have hit the floor and they're basically dead if you looked at it from the outside. But, I dug deep and the teams are actually still involved and working on things in the background. And those are ones I'm going to hold on to and potentially reinvest in and buy more of. But right now, given where the market's at, I'm really kind of in sit back and watch and research mode still.
Yeah, I haven't gone in and really bought any NFTs lately, but I'm excited by them still. I think they're going to bounce. I think they'll have a bounce in the same way that the crypto market does right now. Kind of any free cash that I have, I'm still kind of mostly putting into the tokens.
I do. You're more focused on the token component. What I do find interesting though is, like, if you're trading, right? Like you talk about crypto trading and NFT trading. As I watch just watching the NFTs, I mean, if you're trading and flipping, right? PFPs alone, forget about what they're doing in the background. I'm seeing a lot of guys make great returns. I mean, some of these are jumping up 100, 200%, sometimes way more. It's definitely a very active market still. It just,
for the fact that it's pretty much dead, it's interesting. Like, because on one hand you're saying it's dead, which is true. It is compared to what it was. There's still a lot of activity there. I mean, I'm looking at this project here. So if on CryptoSlam, if you look at the top NFT sales of the last 24 hours, Ethereum, BNB, Bitcoin, the top Solana project is this one called Flamboyant Panthers. I haven't heard of it. I think it just launched, but it had huge sales yesterday, and it looks like just another PFP collection. And there are hundreds, if not thousands of these right now. I don't know what makes this one different or not, but there's still clearly some activity going on. There's a lot of the ones that have kind of caught my attention the most as I looked. Mad Labs has obviously done extremely well, but the game ones like the Heist and Reavers, which Reavers I know went through a lot of problems with, I think they got hacked and there was a bit of a liquidity thing going on there. But the Heist game has done really well. I got to shout out Famous Fox Federation, because they were one of the kind of cartoon PFPs that came out. a couple of years ago, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's anything special, but their floor is almost 40. They've hung on. So a couple of projects have been able to hang on from the old school.
Even DGen Ape Academy, I mean, same kind of story. They hung on as well. And they're kind of OGs in the Solana NFT space, right? I'm with you. I agree. I think I do believe that, even though I say it's dead, it's not dead. There's a ton of activity. It feels dead comparatively, but by no means is it going anywhere. And I think the next cycle, we're going to, when you talk crypto, when you're talking NFTs, the next cycle is going to be very similar for the NFT space, even though I think it will transform into different sectors as to what does well and what doesn't. I think you got to pay attention to it. And I'm itching to really dive back into it, Milt. I really am. And so I think sometime here in the near future, I'll start to make some moves.
Yeah, I think the bottom line from today's episode is Solana is a chain that we cannot be ignored. The price pump over 25% this week. Lots is still happening. I think gaming NFTs are going to be huge. We're going to keep an eye on DeFi, but Solana is not dead. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be one of the big chains for the next bull run, and we got to keep our eye very closely on it.
100%. I don't disagree. Make sure to consider your position. Never financial advice. Nothing we say on this channel is financial advice. We love all of you guys, the Cryptowise family, all of our supporters that have stuck with us through these treacherous bear times. We really appreciate you guys. If you haven't already, please do us a huge favor. Subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, and click on that little bell. Milt, man, I miss you, buddy. I love doing this show, and I'm glad we're back.
You too, bud. Right back at you.